For leaving after my family skipped my Thanksgiving dinner from my sister's house? My name is Hannah. I am 30 years old, and even if it sounds awful, I have always felt like the odd one out in my own family. I love them. I love my parents, my older sister Jessica, and my older brother Tyler. But sometimes it is as if I am watching them from the outside, as if the important parts of life happen to them while I am just standing nearby, waiting for them to look my way. Jessica is 35 and is married to Brian. They have 2 kids, Madison, who is 8, and Jackson, who is 5. Jessica works as a marketing director and has that ability to make everything look perfect on social media. Her house always looks freshly organized, her kids always wear trendy clothes, and when she hosts gatherings, everyone keeps talking about it for days. Tyler is 33 and is married to Ashley. They have a daughter, Lily, who is 6. Tyler is a structural engineer, and Ashley works as a part-time registered nurse. They are the calm ones, the responsible ones, the ones who always do the right thing. Ashley is exactly like my mom in one aspect. She likes everything to be spotless, tidy, without a single speck of dirt. And then there is me. Single, working as a graphic designer. I live alone in a house I bought 2 years ago in Marietta, Georgia, with a 30-year mortgage and everything that entails. It isn't a mansion, but it is my house, and I don't live in chaos like they insist I do. It is just that, for some reason, whenever they come over, they always find something to comment on. The few times they visit, my mom and Ashley drop harmless-sounding phrases. They say dust gathers quickly here, that a quick vacuuming wouldn't hurt, that it would be better for me to organize my home office, as if I lived in an abandoned warehouse. And the worst part is they don't even say it as a scolding anymore. They say it as if it were normal, as if I were the one who always needs correcting. For the past 5 years, important family holidays have been exactly the same. We either go to my parents' house in Roswell or to Jessica's house in Alpharetta. Always those 2 options, never mine, never. And every time I mention it, they give me the same excuse. They tell me I am always busy with work, or they ask if my house is too small for everyone, suggesting it is just better set up over at their places. My house isn't small. I have a dining room where 8 people can sit without being squeezed together. I have space, I have a kitchen with a nice island, and I have the desire to host. But last month, after another one of those seemingly small comments, I decided I had had enough. That Sunday we were at my parents' house watching football. It was that monthly family dinner that no one formally agreed upon, but somehow became mandatory. My dad was slicing a roast, my mom was pacing back and forth in the kitchen, and Jessica was showing everyone the video of Madison's cheerleading competition on her phone, as if it were a movie premiere. There was a brief silence, one of those moments where no one is talking, and I took advantage of it. I told them that this year, I wanted to host Thanksgiving dinner at my house. It was shocking. That isn't an exaggeration. They froze as if someone had muted the television. Tyler put his fork down on his plate. Ashley raised an eyebrow. Jessica looked at me as if I had just announced I was running for local public office. My mom smiled with that voice she uses when she thinks I am daydreaming. She told me that was sweet, but hosting Thanksgiving is a lot of work. I replied that I could handle it, that I had been cooking for myself for years, and that I could organize it. Jessica let out a little laugh. It wasn't a mean cackle, but it wasn't supportive either. She told me it wasn't just about cooking. She said it was about coordinating the timing, making sure everything goes well, and making sure the presentation looks nice. I pointed out that was exactly why I was saying this a month ahead of time. I wanted to do it. My dad nodded slowly, saying that if that was what I wanted, it was fine. But he didn't sound excited. No one sounded excited. Instead, they seemed to be figuring out how to tell me no without actually saying it. Jessica crossed her arms and dropped a comment that felt like a sharp jab. She mentioned that her dinners always turn out great, and then, as if she were patiently explaining something to a child, she added that it takes practice and I had never organized anything like this. That stung, not because it was a lie, but because that was exactly the point. I felt my face flush and told her that of course I hadn't, because they never let me, and because they always assume I am going to fail before I even try. Tyler chimed in with that calm tone he uses when he wants to seem neutral. He said no one was stopping me, but he said it as if he truly believed it was a terrible idea. My mom and dad exchanged a look, that parental look that says I was going to hit a wall and learn a hard lesson. I took a deep breath and let out what I had been holding in for years. I told them that maybe the problem wasn't my ability to host, but that they had already decided who does things right and who is just in the way. Another silence fell over the room. My dad cleared his throat and agreed it was my turn, saying they would come to my house. Jessica agreed with a voice that sounded more like a strict obligation than genuine pleasure. Tyler and Ashley nodded as well, with Ashley giving that polite smile she uses when she wants to hide her true thoughts. After that, they changed the subject, but I could feel a weird vibe as if they were just humoring me. It felt like they expected me to back out a week later and hand the plans back to Jessica. But no, I wasn't going to let it go. I was going to prove to them that I could do it, that I had value, that I counted too. The next 3 weeks were a planning frenzy. I threw myself into it as if it were a massive corporate project at work. I looked up recipes, watched culinary tutorials, wrote down cooking times on a spreadsheet, made grocery lists, and organized my schedule day by day. I figured out what to buy at the supermarket a week ahead, what to grab from the farmer's market 2 days before, and what to leave for Thanksgiving morning. I hired a professional deep cleaning service the Wednesday before. My house had never looked like that. Everything was shining, perfectly arranged, entirely spotless. I literally wanted to avoid touching anything. This time, my mom and Ashley weren't going to have a single thing to complain about. I planned the menu in detail. A butter and herb roasted turkey. A classic sage and sausage stuffing, the kind that smells amazing the second you open the oven. Creamy mashed potatoes. Green bean casserole prepared from scratch. An orange cranberry sauce that Tyler had always loved because my mom used to make it for the holidays. And for Ashley, who always bragged about liking high-quality desserts, I decided to bake a New York-style cheesecake from scratch with homemade whipped cream on the side. I also bought a new linen tablecloth, matching napkins, and brought out my grandmother's fine china. It was the set I had inherited but hardly ever used because honestly, what was the point if no one ever came over? This time it actually felt like a special occasion. 2 days before Thanksgiving, I texted the family group chat. I wrote that I was so excited to see them all on Thursday at 2 p.m. at my house, and that I was thrilled to share the holiday with them. In less than an hour, the little thumbs up and heart reactions started popping up. My mom, my dad, Jessica, Tyler, even Ashley and Brian. I stared at the screen and felt a warmth in my chest. I thought that maybe they were wrong about me before, but now they were finally giving me my rightful place in the family. The night before, I prepped as much as I could. I chopped vegetables, made the cranberry sauce, got the stuffing ready in a baking dish, and set the dining room table with my grandmother's china, the new tablecloth, and perfectly aligned silverware. I bought a simple fall centerpiece with candles and some decorative miniature pumpkins. Nothing over the top, but elegant. It was late by the time I finished. I stood there for a while, looking at the dining room in silence, feeling genuinely proud of myself. On Thursday morning, I woke up at 6 a.m. to get started on the turkey. I had a schedule taped to the refrigerator with specific time slots. At this time the bird goes in, at this time I baste it, at this time the side dishes go in the oven. Everything was calculated so it would be perfectly hot by 2 p.m. I put on a navy blue dress, the one my mom always said looked flattering on me. I styled my hair and put on a little makeup, not to show off, but because if I was going to be the hostess, I wanted to feel confident. By noon, the house smelled incredible. The turkey looked golden and gorgeous. I warmed up the dinner rolls, got the whipped cream ready in a bowl, and loaded the dishwasher so the kitchen wouldn't look messy. At 1:30 p.m., I did my final walkthrough. The table was set, the food was almost ready, the house was immaculate. I was ready. I lit some seasonal candles to make the living room feel cozy. At 2 p.m. exactly, nothing happened. The doorbell didn't ring. No text message chimed. No phone call came through. At 2:15 p.m., I checked my phone for the first time with a bit of unease. I told myself they were probably just stuck in holiday traffic or running late, because getting Jessica's kids ready always took extra time. At 2:30 p.m. there was still nothing. I peeked through the front blinds. My driveway was empty. At 3 p.m. with my stomach in knots, I called my mom. It went straight to voicemail. I left a message asking if they were on their way, and mentioning I was getting worried. I called my dad. It went to voicemail. At 3:15 p.m. I called Jessica. Voicemail. My hand started shaking a little. This wasn't normal. Even if they were running very late, someone would have sent a quick text. I called Tyler. It went straight to voicemail. By 3:30 p.m., I was walking in circles around the kitchen island. The food was starting to lose its perfect texture. I put the oven on a warm setting to keep the side dishes from getting cold, but it wasn't the same anymore. Nothing was what it was supposed to be. I started sending texts asking if everyone was okay, or if there had been an emergency on the highway. No one answered. I took off my dress and changed into jeans and a sweater. I didn't feel like a hostess anymore. I felt entirely foolish. I genuinely thought about getting in my car and driving to my parents' house. I convinced myself that maybe a medical emergency happened and in the chaos, they forgot to contact me. I grabbed my car keys and at that exact moment my phone lit up with a notification. Jessica had uploaded a new photo album to her social media feed. I felt my heart drop into my stomach. I opened the app with trembling fingers. There they were. My mom, my dad, Tyler, Ashley, Brian, and the kids. All of them sitting at Jessica's massive dining room table in Alpharetta, smiling, holding up wine glasses, laughing as if it were a picture-perfect holiday magazine cover. The table was filled with food, a carved turkey, side dishes, everything. And the caption read, "Together again as always. So incredibly thankful for such a close-knit family." I froze. I don't know how long I sat on the living room couch, staring at my empty set table and then down at the screen on my phone over and over, as if my brain simply refused to process the image. And then, little by little, everything started falling into place with a clarity that made me physically nauseous. I had seen this pattern before, but I always made excuses for them. When Jessica was promoted to marketing director 2 years ago, my parents threw her a catered dinner. They invited aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone. There were professional photos, champagne toasts, a huge celebration. When I got promoted to lead graphic designer 6 months later, I received a quick phone call. It lasted 3 minutes. They said congratulations, and that was the end of it. When Tyler and Ashley closed on their house, my parents showed up with a nice bottle of wine, helped move heavy boxes, and spent the entire weekend painting the guest room. When I closed on my mortgage, my dad drove over once to check the water heater and left 20 minutes later. Jessica's kids had massive birthday parties at expensive trampoline parks. My mom spent weeks planning with her, ordering custom cakes and matching decorations. Lily, Tyler's daughter, had a standing tradition of going to the American Girl store with my mom every few months. My birthday? A greeting card in the mail, and if it happened to fall on a Saturday, maybe a quick lunch at a chain restaurant. Perhaps I had convinced myself that they did love me, just in their own unique way. But that Thursday afternoon, looking at that glowing online post, I could no longer keep up the lie. I realized that it wasn't just their unique way of showing love. It was just a complete lack of it. I didn't call them to demand answers. I didn't drive up the interstate to Jessica's house to cause a scene. I didn't send furious text messages. I sat there in silence with a heavy lump in my throat. Then, I got up and started packing the food into large plastic containers. I saved a few portions for myself for the weekend, and I packed the rest into insulated grocery bags. That elaborate meal that took me days to prepare, that food that no one had the basic decency to come and taste. Late in the afternoon, I drove downtown to a large community shelter and soup kitchen I knew about. I carried the heavy bags inside. The volunteers were incredibly surprised and deeply grateful, telling me they would be able to serve dozens of extra plates with all that high-quality food. I just nodded. At least someone was going to enjoy it. At least someone was going to be thankful for the effort. I went back to my quiet house, turned on the television, and put on some old classic movies. My phone didn't ring a single time the entire evening. Not a text wishing me a happy Thanksgiving. Not a message checking in on me. Not a single apology. Nothing. The silence felt suffocating. Friday morning I woke up and stared at the bedroom ceiling for a while, processing everything. And suddenly I knew exactly what I had to do. Without any drama, without second-guessing myself. I needed to leave. I grabbed my phone and called my boss, Marcus. I told him I needed to request some of my accrued paid time off. He asked if everything was okay. I told him I just needed to get away for a bit, requesting 2 weeks starting that coming Monday. There was a brief pause and then he said absolutely. He noted that I had plenty of vacation days saved up, and that I was completely overdue for a real break, pointing out it had been nearly 3 years since I took a proper vacation. I hung up and opened my laptop. Maui seemed perfect. Tropical heat, endless sun, and thousands of miles of distance. I booked a flight leaving on Sunday. It was certainly not cheap, but I had a solid savings account, and at that moment the cost was irrelevant to me. I booked a beautiful beachfront resort, one of those places with a private balcony and a direct view of the Pacific Ocean, without overthinking the price tag. If my family wanted to act like I didn't exist, then I was going to live as if they no longer needed to exist in my life. On Sunday, 3 days after Thanksgiving, I was sitting on a plane with sunglasses on, holding a ginger ale that felt like a celebratory champagne. I felt light, as if a massive weight had finally been lifted off my shoulders. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. Not my family, obviously, and not even my friends. I didn't want to give explanations, I didn't want concerned questions, and I definitely didn't want anyone trying to play peacemaker and convince me to stay. I just wanted to disappear for a little while and remember who I was when I wasn't desperately trying to win someone else's affection. The resort in Hawaii was just as beautiful as the online gallery, maybe even more so. You could hear the crashing waves right from the bed. The balcony offered a perfect, unobstructed view of the water. The first day I spent my time lounging by the resort pool, reading a novel and ordering cold drinks. The second day I started taking pictures. Really good pictures, the kind that look highly curated and professional. The bright sunrise from my balcony. A shot of my elegant breakfast plate with the ocean blurred in the background. A selfie in a light sundress at night, with illuminated palm trees behind me. And that is when I had a small, somewhat petty but highly effective idea. I posted the first picture of myself sitting alone, eating an expensive breakfast on the balcony, and I wrote the exact caption Jessica had used. I typed, "My whole close-knit family, gathered for a perfect morning." It had that exact same smug, picturesque vibe she loved to project. Within an hour, the likes started rolling in. Cousins, high school acquaintances, extended family members who don't even read captions properly. They just see a nice vacation picture and hit the heart button. But then my cousin Megan commented, asking where everyone else was since it was only me in the frame. The next day, I posted another picture of myself walking on the beach with the sunset behind me. Same caption, same concept. My whole close-knit family, getting together for another incredible day. More likes. But now the extended family was actually paying attention. My Aunt Brenda commented, asking if I was traveling alone, pointing out that I kept saying family but she didn't see anyone else. I kept the routine going. Every single day a different stunning photo. Me snorkeling in clear water. Me at a high-end seafood restaurant. Me relaxing on a shaded lounge chair. Me walking out of the resort spa. Always paired with the same close-knit family caption. By the fourth day, Cousin Megan had fully connected the dots. She commented on one of my posts, tagging other relatives. She pointed out that Jessica had uploaded a photo of the family Thanksgiving dinner and I was entirely absent, and now I was posting that I was with the whole family in Hawaii, noting that the math wasn't adding up. That sparked a massive fire. Other relatives started chiming in. My Uncle Mark asked what was going on. My Aunt Susan wrote that she was confused because Jessica claimed everyone was together in Georgia, but I was clearly saying I was with everyone in Hawaii. The conversation became public on my feed, which was the exact type of social exposure my parents always fought to avoid. Then my mom nervously jumped into the comment section, attempting rapid damage control. She wrote a public reply claiming there had simply been a scheduling misunderstanding, stating that I was feeling under the weather and couldn't make it to Alpharetta, which was why they ate without me. She added that I was just being sarcastic with my captions, and that everyone knows my sense of humor. I read her comment and felt something very sharp and very cold settle in my chest. Not only did they completely abandon me, but they were now actively using my supposed poor health as a convenient cover story. That was the moment I uploaded the photo I had been saving. It wasn't a pretty picture of the Pacific Ocean. I uploaded the picture I took on Thanksgiving afternoon. My dining room in Marietta, the table flawlessly set with my grandmother's china, the linen tablecloth, the expensive food cooling in the serving dishes, and all the completely empty chairs. The picture looked incredibly sad. There was no need to use filters or exaggerate anything. It just radiated loneliness. For the caption I wrote, "This was my family Thanksgiving. They promised to come to my house, and they chose to go somewhere else without telling me." Within minutes, my notifications exploded. Friends and extended relatives flooded the comments. People expressed their shock. They asked how anyone could do that after I prepared such a huge meal. Aunt Brenda wrote a comment that hit me hard, stating she had felt for years that I wasn't treated equally, and that this situation confirmed everything she suspected. Then Jessica showed up, furious in the comments. She typed out a long reply telling me I was severely overreacting, claiming it wasn't that big of a deal, and that no one had signed a legal contract to attend. She accused me of causing unnecessary drama and purposely making our parents look bad. I didn't reply by arguing with her. I replied with undeniable proof. I uploaded screenshots of the family group chat, the clear invitation, the enthusiastic messages of agreement, the thumbs-up reactions, and the final reminder I sent 2 days prior. Posted all of it. I didn't need to type another single word. The extended family handled the rest. The comments called out the blatant disrespect. People questioned how my parents and siblings could let me cook a massive holiday meal, completely stand me up, and not even send a text message to cancel. Right then my phone began ringing. Call after call. My mom, my dad, Jessica, Tyler. Text messages started pouring in rapidly. They demanded I delete the post immediately. They accused me of exposing private family matters to the public. They asked why I was being so vindictive. I was sitting on a warm beach holding a frozen cocktail, and the only emotion I felt was utter exhaustion. I powered off my phone completely. I walked into the ocean. The water was perfectly warm and crystal clear. I floated on my back, looking up at the blue sky, and I felt genuine peace. A strange, comforting peace, as if for the first time in days, my anxious mind was finally quiet. When I eventually turned my phone back on late that night in my hotel room, I had 37 missed calls and a barrage of unread messages. Most of them weren't apologies. They were strict demands. Jessica sent me a massive paragraph calling me manipulative for posting private text conversations online. I read the whole thing, locked my screen, and thought one simple freeing thought: I just don't care anymore. For the rest of that week in Maui, I truly disconnected. I left their numbers blocked and avoided opening social media apps. I went ziplining through a canopy, took a local cooking class, tried paddleboarding, ate incredible meals, and slept better than I had in years. When my flight landed back in Atlanta, I felt fundamentally different. I felt grounded, as if a new boundary had permanently settled inside me. I still had my second week of approved paid time off, so I spent it enjoying my own house. I did normal, quiet things. I did laundry, went grocery shopping at my own pace, binge-watched a new streaming series, and slowly got back into my daily routine. I did all of it without that desperate, lingering urge to prove my worth to anyone. On Wednesday afternoon, I was folding towels in the living room when the doorbell rang, followed by aggressive, heavy pounding on the front door. I looked through the peephole. It was all of them standing on my porch. My mom, my dad, Jessica, and Tyler. They looked incredibly tense, as if they had shown up to serve me with a lawsuit and demand compensation for emotional damages. I unlocked the deadbolt, and they barged inside without waiting to be invited, heading straight into the center of my living room. Jessica started raising her voice before the door even clicked shut. She demanded to know what was wrong with me, asking if I had any idea how humiliating my posts had been, and complaining that our entire extended family was gossiping about them. My mom was shaking her head in deep disappointment, treating me like a teenager who had broken curfew. She accused me of airing dirty laundry and posting private family matters for the world to judge. Tyler stood near the entryway, using his authoritative voice, telling me to log on, delete everything immediately, and post a public apology claiming my account was hacked, or that it was a massive misunderstanding. My dad just stood by the sofa with his arms crossed, looking at me with severe disapproval, without saying a single word. I stood perfectly still. I let them talk. I let them vent all their frustrations and list all their grievances. And when they finally ran out of breath and fell silent, I looked at them calmly. I told them I wasn't going to delete a single photo, and I was definitely not going to issue an apology. I told them they were the ones who owed me a massive apology. My mom took a step toward me, her voice dropping into a warning tone. She told me that if I didn't fix my social media pages, they were going to have to distance themselves from me. I let out a short, completely joyless laugh. I repeated the word distance, pointing out that they had kept a firm distance from me my entire adult life. My dad uncrossed his arms, reacting defensively, claiming that was simply not true. He said the words, but he didn't sound convinced at all. I looked at each of them, making direct eye contact. I asked them to tell me the last time they were truly there to support me. I asked when they last celebrated an accomplishment of mine. I asked when they last treated me with the exact same respect and priority they gave to Jessica and Tyler. No one offered an answer. They just looked at each other uncomfortably. I nodded, confirming what I already knew to be true. I told them I was completely exhausted. I said I was done trying to earn a spot in their lives, and I was done begging for leftover scraps of their attention. Jessica opened her mouth, ready to launch another verbal attack, but I cut her off instantly. I told them that if they wanted distance, that was perfectly fine because I wanted it too. I announced that as of that exact moment, I was entirely done dealing with them. The living room fell dead silent. They looked at me as if I had suddenly lost my mind. My mom spoke with a wavering voice, telling me I didn't actually mean what I was saying. I looked her right in the eyes and told her that I absolutely meant every word. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just pointed toward the entryway and told them to get out of my house. Jessica scrunched up her face, calling me ridiculous and acting like I was throwing a childish tantrum. I stepped closer to the door and repeated myself, firmly telling them to leave. Tyler held his hands up, trying to pivot to a calm, professional tone. He suggested we all sit down around the kitchen island and resolve the conflict like reasonable adults. I shook my head, telling him there was absolutely nothing left to resolve or negotiate. I told them they had already made my place in the family perfectly clear, and I had simply decided I was no longer going to occupy that space. I pulled the front door wide open. They hesitated for a moment on the hardwood floor, as if waiting for me to break down, apologize, and beg them to stay. But I just stood there holding the door. They finally walked out onto the porch. Jessica was the last one out. Before stepping down the stairs, she turned around, rolled her eyes, and muttered, "Whatever, Hannah." I closed the heavy door, locked the deadbolt, and leaned my back against the wood for a moment. The only thing I felt in my chest was immense relief. In the following days, my mom tried circumventing my block by reaching out from different phone numbers. She sent long text messages saying we needed to sit down and talk, and that we couldn't leave a family situation fractured like this. I ignored every single notification. A week later, a local delivery van pulled up and a driver handed me a massive, expensive floral arrangement with a generic printed card attached, asking to just put this entire situation behind us. I didn't accept the delivery. I told the driver I was refusing the package and instructed him to return it to the sender. Jessica sent me a text from a coworker's phone, telling me I was acting immature and needed to get over myself. I blocked that number immediately. 2 months later, my birthday arrived. Instead of waiting for a disappointing text, I hosted a dinner party at my house and invited my actual friends. Genuine friends. The kind of people who show up exactly when they say they are going to show up. The kind of people who never make you feel like you are a burden on their schedule. We ordered great food, drank wine, played music, and stayed up talking in the living room until past midnight. I felt more valued and loved that night than I had at any family gathering in the past decade. Later that evening, a courier arrived at my door with wrapped gift boxes from my parents and siblings. They were clearly high-end items, as if a large price tag could serve as a quick transaction to buy my forgiveness. I looked at the courier, politely explained that I wasn't accepting any packages from that address, and asked him to return them to the sender. It has been 6 months since that Thanksgiving dinner. 6 months since I permanently stopped trying to force my way into a family dynamic that simply didn't have room for me. And yes, processing the reality of it hurt deeply, but I am doing significantly better now. I am more at peace and far happier than I ever thought I could be. I started seeing a licensed therapist. It has helped me unpack and understand a lot of the toxic dynamics I spent my entire life trying to justify. What they did was fundamentally wrong, and I was right to protect myself. My therapist mentioned that if I ever felt the desire to rebuild the relationship in the future, structured family therapy could be a safe option. But the absolute truth is, right now, I have zero rush and absolutely no desire to run back to the people who consistently pushed me to the margins of their lives. Maybe someday, years from now, I would consider having a conversation if they demonstrated genuine accountability. If they could look at me and admit, without deploying defensive excuses, that they ignored me, that their actions caused real damage, and that they consistently treated me as if my feelings didn't matter. But until that highly unlikely day comes, I am significantly better off living exactly like this. For the first time in my 30 years, I am not trying to prove my worth to anyone. I am simply living my life surrounded by people who actually see me, who actually value my presence, and who actually stay when they promise to. And that feels incredible. Feels exactly like peace. Comment. Sometimes the hardest step we have to take is walking away from places where our worth is no longer recognized. Setting firm boundaries is not an act of anger, but a profound step towards self-respect and healing. We often feel obligated to accept less than we deserve simply because of shared history or family ties. Choosing your peace of mind over constantly trying to please others is a brave and necessary decision. When your love and effort go unappreciated, you can always redirect that kindness to those who truly need it. Healing begins the moment you stop waiting for an apology and start creating a safe space for yourself. You are only responsible for your own actions and your own heart, not for fixing the ways others choose to treat you. Real family is defined by mutual respect, consistent support, and people who truly show up for you. I hope you always remember that you deserve to be seen, valued, and surrounded by people who celebrate your presence. Please take care of your heart and never be afraid to choose the path that brings you true peace. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.